Hi, welcome to Modern Resin. In this video, I'm going to show you step by step how to do an epoxy resin pour on top of a Lazy Susan and even some of the challenges I ran into. So make sure you watch the video all the way to the end so you don't miss a step. So I bought a Lazy Susan at a local store, and before I put a base coat on it, I like to sand it a little bit. I use 220 grit. It usually takes the shine off that it comes with because I want to make sure that the base color that I use sticks to the wood. Make sure you wipe off all the dust before you start painting it. To paint it, for the base color, I use spray paint. It's quick and easy and is oil based, so it sticks to it pretty well. In this case, because it's just a base coat, I only do one coat. You can do 2 coats if you want to, but I don't see the necessity of it since I'm going to do a pour on top of it and you won't see the wood after you do the epoxy on top of it. Make sure you level it before you start pouring. And now here I'm mixing a 1:1 ratio epoxy resin. In this case, I'm using tabletop. On this project, I'm using 2 types of epoxy resins. And that is because the first layer that I'm using is not as good as quality that I like to use, but I already have it. But the top coat, I use a different one, which you'll see later, which is a really good quality one, and I always use it as a top coat. Over here, I'm dividing all of the resin that I mix into different cups because I'm going to pre-mix the colors, which I recommend doing all of this before you start pouring. You don't want to be mixing all these colors in the middle of pouring. Just make sure you pre-mix everything, have everything ready before you start pouring. You can even mix multiple colors into one to just make different colors. The color that I started mixing came out too dark, so that's why I kept adding white to it. But you can mix 2 colors to make a different color, vice versa. Just make sure don't overdo it. There is such thing as adding too much pigment. I like to use a small plastic trowel to help spread the resin. It works really well. If you're enjoying this video so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe so you don't miss a future video. Here I'm moving the resin around with a stick. I'm manipulating the texture of it by moving it around. As the resin starts to cure but you still have working time, you can move it around to give it texture. You can make little swirls or you can make lines. You can experiment with it until you get the look you like. I like adding spray paint to give it a cool effect. I spray it on a stick and then apply it to the resin. Here I'm using metallic spray paint. Keep in mind that metallic spray paint comes out chunky, and I learned that the hard way, so I recommend practicing with it before you try it. I'm just making 2 lines with this color. Here I'm using regular pink spray paint, not metallic, so it looks like veins when you spray it on the resin. I just spray rubbing alcohol, and what this does, it helps separate the, the spray paint from the epoxy, giving it a cold effect. I'm giving it more texture to my liking, and you can continue to do this as long as you have working time left. You can torch about every 5 minutes as you're working and you see the bubbles come up, but do not torch after the recommended working time. On here, you can see how the texture came out and the colors blend in together. To get rid of the drips, I'm just wiping them off with a stick, and a couple hours later, I'm going to do the same to ensure there are no dry drips when it cures. You can avoid this by using blue tape at the bottom, but you have to take it off before the epoxy hard cures, otherwise it's hard to take off. Before covering, look for any dust of hair that might have fallen on the resin. I use a toothpick to take them out. To cover it, I'm using a PVC frame that I wrap with shrink wrap, but it wasn't the best idea because the shrink wrap is a hair magnet. After a cure, I did a quick sand with 220 grit. So here, I'm locating the hairs that dried up on the resin and sanding them out. It's a good thing this was not the last coat. Sometimes the hairs are very deep and you'll have to sand deeper to dig them out. But because the epoxy is self-leveling, you'll have no trouble pouring the last coat. To wipe it off before the last coat, I use rubbing alcohol. And now we're ready to pour. For the top coat, I'm using Stone Coat Countertop, which is the resin I prefer to use on most of my projects. This resin is heat and scratch resistant to a certain extent, so when I make anything that is used in the kitchen, I like to use this as my top coat, even if I use a different resin for the bottom coat. Like I mentioned before, you can use the trowel to help spread it quicker. Don't forget to get the edges. This is the last coat, so we don't want any imperfections. I torch about every 5 to 10 minutes. This resin has a 40-minute working time, but because it's a top coat, it's pretty quick to apply it. Just check for bubbles when it's getting close to that 40-minute working time. Don't forget to get any last-minute dust or hair that decided to fall on the resin. As you can see, I got rid of the shrink wrap and I'm using painter's plastic instead. This works much better. And voila, this is how it came out. It's a beautiful Lazy Susan and I made it as a gift for my mom who's a baker. So it's a great gift. You can DIY or you can make it as a gift for yourself. And if you made it all the way to the end, you can check out more of my projects by clicking one of these videos on the screen, and I'll see you on the next video.